So welcome to the MIT Bootcamp's Alumni Association e-seminar. Today we're going to be talking about how best can you prepare for your bootcamp journey. We're delighted to have a group of alumni from all around the world and excited for you to get started on your bootcamp journey. And I am going to hand it over to them right now. All right, so Rachel, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Amongst the panelists, we've got, I think, a representation of all the time zones and continents just about. So thank you for being here. Thank you, especially to our panelists, for taking the time to share their insights with the upcoming cohort. Before we start, I just want to give some housekeeping tips regarding Zoom. So the session is being recorded so that you'll be able to watch it again. And also you are muted. You're all muted as participants so that you can get the bandwidth is going to be kept for the speakers. If your video connection is bad, you can try logging back in, and you can post any questions you have into the chat box. And Andrew, who's hosting, will be pulling out the questions that we want to address during the session, and any question that is not addressed during the session will be then handled in the Facebook group. So please feel free to post any of your questions into the chat box. To do that, you go onto the toolbar that's at the bottom of this Zoom window, and there's a chat button. And if you click on that, you'll have a column that opens on the right side of your screen, and you can just type in your question. That way, we make sure to address any sort of queries you might have. And if you want to speak, you can raise your hand, and we're going to be kind of testing this because I'm not sure how this works in an e-seminar. But if you go again onto the bottom side toolbar and click on participants, you should find in the right-hand column a button right at the bottom on the right that says raise hand. So if you have something really urgent that you want to say, you can raise your hand, and then Andrew will decide whether you get to speak. All right. So overview of how this e-seminar is going to work. Each panelist is going to do a very brief intro of him or herself and tell you about which bootcamp class they come from, which country they're in. Well, actually the country, you can actually see it next to our name, so we can skip that. And maybe a few words about what their passion is and what they're currently doing. And then we'll be looking at 5 main themes that we hope cover most of the queries you might have at the moment. And again, if they're not covered, type your extra query into the chat box. So we'll be talking about how to prep to hit the ground running when you get to bootcamp. So what are the things you can do before you start your journey, your physical journey towards Brisbane. Then Claudia is going to speak about self-care and charging up before bootcamp and how to look after yourself during your adventure in Brisbane. Then number 3, Daniel is going to tell you how to best approach the theme of projects and ideas. So how do you handle ideas and what do you do with your own projects with respect to what your bootcamp experience is going to be? Richard will talk about networking before, during, and after bootcamp. And David will touch upon team roles and how to build the team. Okay, so here we go. I'll let Chris introduce himself, and then Claudia, Daniel, Richard, and David. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Chris. I'm from Class 5, did Brisbane about this time last year. My passion is really the secret sauce of innovation and innovation case studies through history, and I'm quite passionate about small team high performance. My current activity is I'm currently building an innovation ecosystem within a small team for a large organization down here in Australasia, and also trying to apply social matching techniques to legacy communities. So, yep, thanks very much.
Hi, I'm from Mexico. I'm Claudia. I have a bachelor's in IT management, but I'm really passionate about how to apply all of this into digital marketing. I'm currently head of business intelligence at a digital agency within Mexico. And one of the things that we are working on is how to apply data into all across the processes so that we are actually data driven. And I was part of the IoT Bootcamp, which was really an outstanding experience. And I'm really glad to be sharing this with you guys.
Great. Thanks. So my name is Dan. I'm calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was in class 2 at MIT in Cambridge. My background is in mechanical engineering, but my passion is in sustainable and renewable energy. My current activity, I just finished a master's degree in sustainability and environmental management at that arts and crafts school up the hill from MIT. And I'm working on a television show now. It's a children's television show to teach science and energy. It's called Energy Street TV. And it's kind of a mashup between Bill Nye the Science Guy and Mythbusters. So I think, David, you're next.
Oh, I'm next. Excellent. So, hi everyone. I'm David Anderton. I am originally from England and was part of Class 1 here, which was held in Cambridge, Mass. And okay, let me just talk a little bit about myself, what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm a master's student at the Media Lab. I'm super excited by like measuring human emotions through computer vision, and that's what I'm basing my research on. And most of that excitement and interest comes from the way in which the monitoring of human emotion can help to improve human-robot interactions and like personal robotics into the near and distant future. So that's pretty much what I'm about, and feel free to get in contact about anything if we don't answer your questions on this e-seminar. So cool, looking forward to talking to you shortly.
Hello, my name is Richard, and I'm in New York, and I'm part of the Class 2 that was held in Cambridge. And my background is in industrial design. I have a long background in toys and game development and infant care. And my passion is gamification, applying game mechanics and techniques to solving business problems. And specifically, what I'm working on right now is an ecosystem of innovation for maker spaces around the world, starting with New York. I have a project that I call Maker Mundo. And my test platform is going to be introduced at libraries to get initially cultures, different cultures in New York to connect, getting the country perhaps to connect with people in the city, and ultimately trying to get people around the world to connect more deeply over projects. And if I could answer any questions regarding gamification, I look forward to sharing my thoughts about networking before, during, and after the boot camp, so you guys have a really good experience. So thanks for having me as part of the panelist group.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Richard. Quick intro of myself. My name's Rachel. I live in Rome, Italy, and I was a Class 3 boot camper, and it was the first off-site boot camp that was located in Seoul, South Korea. My background is in architecture, so I trained as an architect and worked first as an architect before working in a startup by pure chance. It was one of those twists of fate. So I worked for 3 years in a sharing economy startup here in Italy. And that's what got me into the entrepreneurship bootcamp, first the MOOC and then the boot camps. My passion because in this eclectic background that I have, I was looking for a kind of guiding thread. So my passion is actually around sharing information, knowledge, and connections using technology. So this is kind of what is guiding my choices at the moment in life. Currently, I'm very interested in researching alumni engagement and how to nurture bootcamp magic beyond bootcamp experience. So I'm also involved in ULab activities, which is another MIT online course that has a very large and powerful global community. So I'm also trying to take the ULab teachings into the way people communicate and enhance mutual empowerment. And I attended a teacher training bootcamp in Boston in August 2016. So I'm also trying to bring entrepreneurship into high schools in Italy. So that's a way of preparing the future generations to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. So that's it from me. And now we'll move on to the themes that we've prepared for you. So we'll have Chris speaking about how to hit the ground running for when you arrive at bootcamp. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers, Rachel. First, I want to start off by saying that, I want to acknowledge that everybody here on the panel and everybody that's been accepted to all the previous boot camps and this upcoming boot camp, they all come with pretty amazing backgrounds. I'm just absolutely blown away at what everybody has done. The diversity and depth of experience has just been absolutely incredible. I know in my particular case, I kind of got lulled into a false sense of security of thinking that, well, I'm ready to go. I've got a background with doing things like working with Amazon.com, going to Stanford, and having learned from Steve Blank of Lean Startup fame. And then it kind of hit me that, I really need to go back. I need to start over, and I need to go through and do these MOOCs. I need to get the MOOCs done. I need to read the Discipline Entrepreneurship book. It is the common core language. While we've all got a lot of diverse experience regarding entrepreneurship and innovation in our own ways, the common language at which we're going to speak is going to come from those MOOCs, and it's going to come from the Discipline Entrepreneurship book. So I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to not take your foot off the gas. If anything, you need to switch into high gear, and you need to make sure that you go through these very systematically, so that when you do arrive at the boot camp, you are well prepared to speak this common core language that we've got for discipline entrepreneurship. So enough of that, but make sure you get it done. For me, what I did in preparing for this that I found most beneficial is I did a bit of cyber stalking. I had a look on YouTube, and I see all the 1-minute videos of all the other attendees. And while there's only so much you can learn from 1 minute, it gives you a good indicator of at least an initial of who these people are that you're going to be attending class with. And then from there, digging a bit deeper into LinkedIn and Facebook, trying to verify who they are, and just connecting with them, trying to connect with them as quickly as you can, and initiating a conversation, which is pretty easy in terms of, hey, looks like we're going to boot camp together. Be good to get to know each other. So for me personally, the way I started was going through the YouTube 1-minute videos, and then digging deeper into LinkedIn profiles and Facebook profiles, and trying to befriend people and connect with people. One thing about that is I would recommend going about doing it in a systematic way, but also with EQ, emotional intelligence. At the end of the day, this is a journey that you're taking not just by yourself, but you're going to be doing it in a small team, and then you're going to be doing it as part of a lifelong community. So that when you do arrive at the boot camp, you're going to have to move very, very quickly. I think of it like going to a dance or a nightclub. You don't want to be the wallflower hanging along the side all night long. You need to get in there. You need to start dancing straight away. As soon as you arrive, get to know everybody, and do it in a way that, with an expectation that you're going to have a relationship with these people potentially for the rest of your professional lives. The way we are connected internationally now, you may not see them again for a couple of years, but you're likely to be engaged with them online, ongoing. So make sure that every single person that you're talking to at the boot camp, you're not dismissive in terms of building your team, that you're going to be connecting with these people over the long term. But in terms of building your team, you want to get into it as quickly as you can. Don't be last. Whatever you do, you don't want to be last. Probably the final, I guess, assignment that I would have for all of you is reading a short article called A Message to Garcia that was written by Elbert Hubbard back in 1899. I promise it's not a hard read. It's only about 1,500 words. It takes less than 5 minutes, but it really gives you a good indicator of at least my perceptions of the mindset you need to have when you're approaching the boot camp. But I wish you all a lot of luck. And if anybody needs to connect with me for any reason, I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. So please do if you have any questions. Thank you. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks very much, Chris. That was awesome. Is there anything from, because that's one of the questions that one of the upcoming boot campers asked me, is regarding like the courses. Did you find that there was a hierarchy, or that some parts of the MOOCs were more important, or like a particular book apart from 24 Steps, of course? Is there something that kind of also, with the benefit of hindsight, is there something that you would like point out more specifically that is like an anchor point or something of reference?
For me, I would definitely go with the foundation is clearly the MOOCs and the Discipline Entrepreneurship book. But what I also found of value was Lean Startup, Design Thinking. The one thing they all really share in common is that whole concept of MVP. But beyond that, really, it comes down to the human equation, I think, of just be mindful of your emotional intelligence. Your EQ is so incredibly important here with working with your team. And you'll find that, I think, when it's that 2 a.m. and you've just pivoted, just be mindful that it's a big part of it is how you operate within your team as well, that EQ.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. And now we'll pass it on to Claudia, who will speak to you about how to look after yourselves, how to take care of yourselves. So it's to do with body intelligence, because the body is what is carrying us into this adventure, and so it needs to be looked after. So there are some tips, because you're going to have a very, very, very physically intense week, and don't forget to take care of yourself. So over to you, Claudia.
Thank you. Well, like Chris said, congratulations to everyone for being part of this. This is going to be an experience that you're not going to forget anytime soon. And there's a catchphrase, drinking out of the fire hose, that is quite true within these boot camps. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you need to take the most out of this experience. The bootcamp that I was in was IoT, and one of the reasons that interested me is because I'm always looking at data as a way to how to improve myself in every single area. So health in particular, to how to make it the most of it, is one of the main parts. So on the days leading up to the bootcamp, try to get as much sleep as you can, so you are fresh right out of the start. And if you can, avoid taking like a red-eye flight to arrive into the location. So arrive perhaps a day earlier, so you can have a good night's sleep and be rested. And don't be too nervous about it, because once you get there and you meet everyone, you'll see that you're in great company. So any kind of fears that you might have right there might be over. Another thing that is good is that while there may be breakfast there, you might want to take some protein bars or some granola bars with you, because once you're in the zone and working with your team, you don't want to be distracted by not having enough food, or if you go outside and get some sugary snacks, you might crash and burn around the end of the week. So you want to keep it healthy with proteins. And the other thing is drink a lot of water. I know that it's tempting, that it's like 2 a.m. and you might want to hit another jar of coffee to keep awake. but make sure that you are having as much water as your coffee to make the best of it. One of the things that happens when you're taking a lot of coffee is that your sleep is going to be messed up. So it doesn't matter if you are stressed out or if you are trying to be attentive in class or in your teams. You are not going to be there 100%. And believe me, this is an experience where you want to be there and to take in as much as you can. So please make sure that you are taking care of yourself, even if you're pulling all-nighters. If you have previous materials that you need to study, take into account that there's only so much you can do in those days. So perhaps taking notes in a way that you're able to revisit them later. So one of the things that I did in my bootcamp is that there were a lot of topics that I might not be too familiar with and I might want to visit later. I had highlights of every single topic that I wanted to review, and I didn't do that right then. I waited until I returned from the bootcamp and then review all of that to make sure that during the bootcamp I was taking as much time as needed on everything. And the other thing is like sleep deprivation is linked to a lower cognitive performance. So again, you're going to be around anyone that that has a lot of things to teach you. You don't want to be in less than 100% functioning there. So make sure you sleep, and within your team, you will be able to balance out everything that needs to be done. So take care of each other as well. If you see someone in your team is like taking a lot of charge of everything, make sure that you balance out everything that you need to get done. And at the end of the day, just have fun. This is going to be an amazing experience. So take it with a grain of salt. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you might not get as much sleep as you want, but take care and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, Claudia, I was going to ask you, because how can a boot camper reconcile like the two opposites of take care of yourself and get enough sleep, and then the kind of famous motto of the boot camp, which is sleep is for the weak. So there's this paradox, right?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is that you know how much sleep you need to work. And if you don't, you can use apps. So for instance, I like to track everything. There's this app called Rhythm that helps you know what are the best times for you to eat according to your current sleep patterns. So you might know that you need at least 6 hours to sleep to work. So perhaps you are having 5 hours of sleep and a 30-minute power nap to make sure you are well balanced. And if it's going to be a long day, just make sure, like I said, that you are not taking a lot of sugary things or a lot of coffee, because the rest that you're going to have, those 6 hours are not going to be effective. I'm also worried about things being effective. So if you're going to have 4 hours of sleep, just make sure that those 6 hours or 4 hours or whatever they are effective and you're well rested, because it's going to be worth it at the end.
And one thing we touched upon the other day when we chatted, it was about dehydration, because when you're working on a project and very, very intensely concentrated on something and the time just flies by, especially if you're in the flow, one of the things that might happen is that you forget to drink, right? So, and that will actually affect your performance.
Yes, and especially since many people tend to go straight to the coffee. Believe me, when I was there, I had this exact tumbler filled with coffee, but I also had another one filled with water. So just make sure that for every single ounce of water that you're taking, of coffee that you're taking water. There are also some hydration pills. I don't know if they have them there. I used to take some that are by None, that have a little bit of caffeine, but they're also hydrating. So, and they are not sugary as a Gator or something that it's for sports performance. So that might also help you to balance out everything that you're taking because your body at the end of the day is taking a toll from all of the stress and everything that you're going through. So you need to take care of it.
Thank you, Claudia, for these excellent tips on how to look after your body, which is your vessel, the vessel of your mind. Now we're passing it on to Daniel, who's going to talk to us about how to approach the boot camp mentally, in terms of how how do you arrive at bootcamp? What's the optimum attitude to have towards, approaching projects? What do you do? Do you come over and try and push your own project, your own agenda, or should you, on the contrary, be open to totally new possibilities? Because one of the concerns as a boot camper, usually arriving with something, something boiling in their pot, you might think, this is a wonderful occasion to push my idea and get lots of excellent feedback from all these amazing people. But, paradoxically, that might not be the best approach. So over to Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So again, I was a member of class 2. Richard was in my class. I came to the boot camp with my own idea, just like I see there's 41 of you attending this seminar. So there's 41 great ideas out there that you can all take through boot camp. They would all be great to take through boot camp, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But I went to boot camp with the idea that I've got this idea and I'm going to push it through and I want to win boot camp. I want to present this to the judges and I want to be the winner. I want to be the one that walks away either with funding, or if not funding, the door prize that they give you when you walk out. And in retrospect, I think about it and I think it was a mistake to come in with that attitude, because what happened was, you arrived at boot camp, everybody's got these great ideas. I don't know how many people are in your class, but let's say there's 80, 100 people, and they all have an idea and they're all pitching it to everyone else. And they're all trying to get their idea selected, get a team to coalesce around their idea. Ultimately, whatever falls out, only about 1 out of every 5 or 1 out of every 8, somewhere in between that, of your ideas is going to be selected. So your idea has less than a 20% chance of being selected to start with. If it does get selected, it's going to be put under the microscope for the first 2 days. And everybody's going to point out everything that's wrong with it. Because your idea ultimately probably solves more than one problem. And you've got to get to that MVP, your minimum viable product. And everybody's going to be pushing you to get to that minimum viable product. So you're going to probably, most likely, waste a lot of time trying to figure out what that MVP is for your product, because you've already thought about this probably for 1 or 2 years before you got to boot camp. So what I'm saying is, I think that if you come to boot camp with an open mind, obviously come with your ideas, discuss your ideas with everybody. If people come and coalesce around your idea, fine, run it through boot camp and go. But ultimately, come with an open mind, not thinking that it's my project and I want to push this through and I want to get this in front of the people at MIT and I want to get it in front of the venture capitalists that might be judging the thing. Because ultimately, the reason you're here, or the reason you're coming, is not to get venture capital from boot camp. And it's not even to impress the people at MIT. It's to learn how to do this so you can go back to your homes and turn this project that you have into a reality. That's not going to happen at boot camp. It's going to happen when you get back home. You're going to have 1 week at boot camp to test ideas, but you're not going to actually implement them until you get home. So my thought is, come with your idea, but also come with some problems that you'd like to solve that aren't even part of your idea. So for example, I came with an idea of, direct current energy systems for buildings. That was my idea, and that's what we ran through boot camp. But ultimately, I think back, what was the problem I was trying to solve? And, I'm trying to solve, renewable energy, and how do we get more renewable energy? And how do we stop wasting energy in our electronic devices by converting all this electricity between AC and DC and back and forth? But, you have solar panels, AC systems, and all that. So if I go back to the problem that I was trying to solve and start with that, how to reduce electronic waste energy, that's one problem. I could have came in with that idea and been more successful. Another choice is that, okay, how do we supply energy to, the 1.8 billion people on the planet that don't have electricity? That was another problem that my solution would have solved, but that was a completely different problem than the first one I described, right? So think about the problem you're trying to solve, and then try to form a team around solving that problem, people with that interest, that shared interest, and run that problem through boot camp, because then you'll be starting from square one. You'll have a week to go through and get that problem solved. And since you're starting at square one, when you get done, you'll have the skill set necessary. Then you can then take your own idea back home and then implement that. You spend another week at home, building your team if you don't already have one, coming up with your MVP for your product, going through the same things you're going to go through at boot camp. But you're doing it from scratch, and you're not doing it at boot camp. And I think you'll be better off if you think about doing it that way. So I guess in summary, it's just come with your ideas, discuss your ideas, but try not to come with the idea that you have to win this boot camp, because there is no, everybody wins. There is no winner. I don't even know who won my boot camp. I know all the products, I know all the things that happened, but I don't know who won. It's not about winning, and it's not about that. It's about learning and growing and gaining the skills you need to grow. So come with your ideas, share them, but really come with problems that you want to solve, and come with an open mind to either work on problems that you want to solve or joining a team where someone else has problems that they want to solve that you're interested in solving. So with that, I'll stop. I don't know how long that's been, but
thank you, Daniel. That was very, very well put, and I think very wise. I just wanted
Rachel,
to
may I add to
yeah, sure.
What's been shared so far? I think the other thing, to really look at on the first day is not just the identification of your problem definition and getting specific about that. Also, it's understanding the capabilities that you have, as well as the capabilities you don't have, which you then need to go find in the people and to form a team. So, it's these complementary skill sets that you want to be looking out for. And so that's why it's incredibly important on the Saturday night to be really confirming your analysis of the people who will be coming and that you'll be meeting too. So a lot of questions we've kind of had a lot of questions on, how can we form teams, how can we network? I think really a lot of people are going to be caught up on getting stuck in long conversations. Make sure that you don't do that. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Andrew. One last word I wanted to say about hanging on to your own idea. One of the dangers is that will actually influence team dynamics, because whoever is hanging on to their own idea is going to have ownership syndrome, and that actually interferes with team dynamics, and it'll create an atmosphere more of closure. So it'll be like a wrestling game. So the more open you are and the more receptive you are, the more you'll walk away with, even though it might be counterintuitive in the beginning, but the learnings are sometimes indirect. So make sure that you treasure what Dan has told you about ideas and how to approach the bootcamp. And now it's...
Well, can Rachel just respond to that real quickly? Because we did experience that in my team. Partly it was my idea, and people had warned me about this syndrome. So I tried my best to spread it out so that didn't happen. But I think because it was my idea, I think that people wanted me to take leadership, or at least they felt like that was whatever. As I tried to spread the leadership out, it always came back to me, even if I didn't want that to happen. So it's a hard thing to get around. And that's another reason why I would think it would be good to come with an open mind, think about doing other projects so you can learn more, I think.
Indeed. Thank you, Daniel. Now it's over to Richard. Richard is going to talk to you about how to approach networking, and there's so much that you can be doing right now to get ready. There are lots of tips and tricks about networking while you're there, because you have to make the most of those 5-6 days you'll be spending with each other, and what you can do after boot camp. So this would entail also pre-planning at this point in time when you're making all your traveling arrangements and plans. Over to you, Richard. Richard, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi there. Sorry about that. I wanted to concur with a lot of what Dan had said about have an open mind, and don't get so attached to your project. Remember that half of any project is dealing with people and working with people. And I would say that one of the things that I learned, which drove my intention to go to the boot camp, was to learn from people. I'm very attached to my ideas. I feel strongly about them, but I know that it takes people to make it happen. So I had the intention to meet as many people as I could. And so I used, all the networking strategies that I had. I spoke to others that have gone to events like this, very intensive, hackathons. I've gone to many, and since this boot camp experience, and I've gotten better at networking. But I can point out, beyond some of the obvious ideas of what you can do to, for example, Chris mentioned early on, go look at the list of attendees, check out the bootcamp videos, and get to understand what people are interested in, what they're presenting. But I would suggest some other things that you can do to maximize your time so that you can meet as many people that you could work with at the bootcamp. Either if you're fortunate to have your project picked, you'll know something about the backgrounds of these people, so you might be able to get them on your team. Or, from my approach, I wanted to learn from others. And so I looked at the startup data sheets and looked at people's backgrounds and what their project was about. I connected with Dan as a result of Dan actually making a comment on my video. And so I recommend doing that. Look at the videos, make comments, respond to those comments. I responded to Dan. I looked at his data sheet and I found that Dan was someone I wanted to learn from because I wanted to learn about sustainable energy. And so we spoke a little bit, or at least communicated through the Slack groups. I recommend joining the Slack groups and get involved in the discussions there. Notate who interests you and make a point of meeting those people. Note who also comments on your postings and seek those people out. Some other things that you can do that I found very helpful, for example, is go to the boot camp a day early for the express purpose of seeing if there is a sort of intro party. Someone might set that up, and someone did for our boot camp. And if you have it within you, set up a party so that people who come early can meet. It's a great informal way before you meet the boot camp facilitators and get into the program full steam, is to meet in an informal setting. It's a great way to connect personally. And then when you go to the actual program, you're already connecting with some people that you met the day before. So I think that's a good thing to try. Also, you can, for example, during the lunch and meal breaks at breakfast each day, try and seek out one person that you've not met before. And that's another way that you can sort of get unstuck from, just focusing on the group and the material, meet some other people that way. And also Andrew said something that was very important. Try to keep them short, because before you know it, the break is over and you got to get back to work and back to the program. But that's a good way to meet people. In advance of the program, find out, for example, where people are staying. I found it a good strategy, not only to discover where, if you need to save some money, or find what hotel might be well positioned within in proximity to the school. I recommend not going to Airbnb necessarily right away, unless you can go to a hotel that more people from the bootcamp are attending, because you'll be running into them in the morning. You'll take Uber rides with them, both there and back, and you'll have an additional opportunity in that small week's time to bond outside of the bootcamp. And so I think that's a great way to maximize your time at the bootcamp, is to think about where to stay in relation to getting in more contact with people at the bootcamp. Another thing that you can do as well is that you'll have the opportunity to meet some terrific speakers. And if you look at the list of speakers that are planned for your bootcamp, take a look at their profiles, what they've done, where they've been, and see if you have either something in connection with them that in their background, so that when they're attending your bootcamp and they have their special presentation, you'll be able to connect with them after they're done with their talk, and have something to say to them. In addition, if you like a specific speaker, sit closer to them, so that when there's a meet and greet right after they're done speaking, you can be early in the meet and greet line, Also, you can get to the lunch table so you don't miss out on taking care of your body by eating because you stayed way back in the line. But go early, say hello to that person, say something relative to what they've spoken about, that, something about their talk that resonated with you, and perhaps ask for their business card. And you can connect with someone on that level that you would otherwise have not met. So that's another thing that you can do. For me, one of the things that I learned about the boot camp at MIT and the MIT process of how they get stuff done is embracing this idea that you are part of a team, that innovation is a team sport. There's a lot of that being talked about there at the boot camp, and it's one of the things that really, really inspired me to work that much better at connecting with people, learn more from them. You're going to have a terrific opportunity to meet people from around the world, and don't get so attached to your ideas, but get attached to the idea of connecting with people. And good luck at the boot camp.
Thank you, Richard.
Can I jump in for very quickly
Yes,
again?
please.
Just to clarify on the time since Richard came to boot camp also, maybe something we should do the next time. But really, Richard, since you came to boot camp, now we start on Saturday evenings.
Oh.
We have the networking sessions on Saturday evenings now. Welcome. And also, dinner and more structured programs that will be happening for this coming boot camp in Brisbane on Saturday evening. So we will send, I think Karen asked a question, will a program overview be provided? Yeah, we'll tell you when to show up on Saturday. It's probably gonna be around 5 p.m. for when the session starts. And we're also gonna have registration. I believe it was 2 to 3 o'clock or somewhere around there. We'll send out more information as it becomes available. Where everybody's anxious, like everybody else from the alums here. They were like, can I have the schedule? Can I have the schedule? The schedule comes out on Sunday. We will tell you where to meet on Saturday. And so yeah, that's my part.
Oh, one last pointer, if I could point out that don't forget to attend the after boot camp party. It's see if you can, in planning your program and the time that you're going to be in Brisbane, that if you leave maybe a day after the boot camp is over, you can keep yourself open for the possibility of some after boot camp parties. And it's another terrific way to extend that bond that you created and meet some others that because of the intensity of the program you weren't able to speak to.
Yeah, actually, for those who are able, I would even advise, more than one day as long as you can, because there's so much magic just after the boot camp, and everybody's like really relieved after demo day, and everything has thawed, and people have been at their worst, and they're feeling so much trust and so much connection. So I, for example, had to go home immediately, and I really regretted that, because I know some people stayed on and spent 3 days either trekking together or going to see sites, or some went on trips, and I think that's a very precious time. So for those of you who are able, I highly recommend that you plan beforehand if you're able to stay on, and leave yourself open to the opportunity of doing more in terms of fun times and just relaxed times, because you'll see that by the end of those 5-6 days, special friendships actually are born. So it's good to leave space for that, I think. And for those who can't stay on physically, I recommend don't stop connecting, because there are so many people that you can learn to know after boot camp, even via video chats. So I think probably more than a third of boot campers I'm connected with today, I have actually approached after bootcamp, because maybe at bootcamp I only said hello or exchanged 2 or 3 words with them. And you can explore a lot after bootcamp as well. And I don't know whether any of you from this cohort have taken the initiative yet, but what happened in our Facebook group before bootcamp started, a few boot campers threw out the idea of just connecting like on Hangouts or on a group chat session to get to know each other. And I still remember very well the 3 people I connected with on a sort of a group hangout like this one. So it gives you a feeling of knowing them a little bit already before you arrive, which is really, really nice. I'll hand it over now. Sorry. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was gonna second that, because before boot camp, as Richard said, we communicated online. Another boot camper from my class happened to be in Minnesota at the time, or was going to be in Minnesota visiting her family. So she reached out to me, and we actually went and had lunch together. And that was my closest contact from boot camp. So we both pitched each other's ideas. She had 3 ideas. I had like, let's say 6. And we said, okay, we're going to pitch one of our ideas. But whoever is chosen or not chosen, we decided at that point we were going to work together. I was a hustler. She was a more hipster hacker, get shit done kind of person, GSD, what we call it at boot camp. And yeah, so she's my best contact, and she's my best friend for boot camp because we met a month before, just randomly. So yeah, connect. Connect and take initiative. Yeah, very, very good point.
Of something that I should point out that I thought was very interesting, I forgot to point out, and that is that Dan offered an idea. He said, hey, I have an idea for something that you're doing that might be helpful. And rather than my asking, oh, what's it all about? I said, well, I look forward to meeting you and talking about it in person. And so while we're focused on perhaps developing the idea that we have that we're close to, think about how you might add value to someone else's idea through their videos, and let them know if you have something that they'd like to hear, that you'd like to talk to them about it at the bootcamp.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. Yeah, that's there's so many ways to connect. So be creative, be spontaneous, and just follow your instincts. And I think you can't really go wrong. We'll hand it over now to David, who's going to give us some tips on how to approach the theme of team building, which is a little bit daunting because you'll be thrown together with a lot of people you've never met before. But after these wonderful tips that you've received tonight, you'll probably know, tonight, sorry, I'm saying tonight because it's almost midnight here, but it's this afternoon, this morning, during the session. You'll probably find ways to get to know other people, but you'll still have to build a team very quickly and get a lot of shit done in those 5 days before demo day. So David, over to you on how to do that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've got to say this is excellent. So thank you everyone for being here and putting this together. If only we had this for the first boot camp. Maybe we all wouldn't have made so many mistakes. But anyway, I just wanted to pick up on the theme that Richard, Dan, Chris, Claudia, and Rachel have all mentioned, and Andrew, of course, who pops in. It was around this idea of like the contact and the communication between boot campers, and how you start off these relationships maybe early on. And for me, I had this experience again, which has become routine, and I've stopped to think about it. But probably last week, the start of last week, with another of the bootcamp coaches called Nathan in Los Angeles, and we met for the first time. We've never spoken to each other before. Just briefly on WhatsApp to figure out where to grab coffee. And the conversation just flowed, and it was like old friends meeting for the first time in years. So I was just totally taken aback when he mentioned wow, it seems like we've known each other forever. And I was like, it didn't even come up as a thought in my head, because I've become so used to having that shared experience with people in this network. And that's just such an incredible thing. So I thought I'd spend a minute to mention that, and you guys should all be super excited about what's to come. So my job is super easy now because Richard, Dan, and Chris have basically covered everything to do with team building, and team formation. You know, a lot of the core fundamental things. So I'll just probably explore a few other elements. And you know, Rachel was saying, you know, with the bandwidth for the speakers, unfortunately we can't have the video, but I just want to maybe hand over a little bit more of that bandwidth to you guys. And so please actively throw questions out into the chat around team formation, and we can see if we can, I can pick up any of those that might have been left unanswered in the meantime. So really, I think the theme that I've taken from this whole call is really that we should be proactive. And that's proactive in firstly taking care of yourself, and then secondly, meeting others, then testing ideas in the safe space, and eventually building out your entire, potentially your entire future, both in terms of relationships with other boot camps and your business idea. And so I start to see that, you know, there's already moves being made with Mark in the chat, planning accommodation, and Razvan discussing like having a Facebook group chat. So it's really cool and encouraging to see you guys even like getting these wheels rolling so early on, and also, you know, in this setting. So I had a question for, I guess, the other panelists, and so I guess we can just like make some kind of physical gesture to signal agreement or disagreement. I won't define what those gestures are just yet, but let's just say, like, who out of the panelists, because this is also personal interest for me, knew the team, knew they were going to be with this set of people when they actually came to the boot camp. I mean, they defined, so you had defined roles of the 4 to 5 people who you were going to work with. Did you know who those people were? No?
No.
In my case, in our team, when we arrived, we were already assigned according to roles. So we had a previous meeting on a baseball game where we were meeting, and then everyone was throwing out names like, I'm wolves, I'm penguins, and we were like, what's that? And then we found out that our teams were made up like that. And it was really interesting because at the game, we were bonding with different people, but we didn't really knew which ones were going to be in our teams. But once we were assigned, everyone had a specific role, and at least in the case of my team, it was perfect. Like, we had the exact amount of technical people, we had the exact amount of business people, we had the exact amount of everyone that we needed to work the project with. So it was a kind of different experience. Interesting.
I think that then I guess the other question is, in terms of, you know, did you already know people who were on your team? I know Dan and Richard you've mentioned, but did you know one person or a few people who were in a team that you formed at the end? So you hadn't spoken to any of them, Chris, prior to?
Now, for me, when I arrived, the first time I talked to anybody, in whether it would be online or in person, was the first icebreaker for the boot camp.
Interesting. So I think there is some interesting thing, like with Chris's case, and like also if you do end up, like, if flight gets canceled or you end up late, you kind of have these options. You know, you miss day one, like teams are kind of already a little formed. Perhaps you haven't managed to connect with people online so well. You have like kind of binary choice in some ways. Either you shut down and you start to become grumpy about how you haven't found your team, and you know it's all the boot camp's fault, and it's like, oh no, I'm not gonna make the most of this opportunity. Or you can just become super proactive and just, you know, take a look at yourself, an honest look at what you're wanting to learn, as been mentioned, what you're able to contribute best, and what who and what can complement you, and then just go out there and be fearless. You know, approach different teams, ask what they're looking to do, what they're looking to achieve, see if you can kind of collaborate. And so I think there's this great opportunity, both if you turn up without knowing anyone, and having that challenge ahead of you to kind of fit in and mold your plan. But also if you're gonna like all you guys who are here today, the 40 of you, I think now, the great opportunity you have to connect online and hopefully to set up some video calls with each other. Maybe you can do things thematically. So that's really great. So there's a few, just a few small things I wanted to cover just really briefly. Was firstly, challenge yourself in terms of the team you form. Don't form an easy team of people who you feel like you know you're going to get along with super well, who all maybe mirror experience or at the same level of professionalism as you feel that you have yourself, or the same level of background. So really pick people who you wouldn't have usually paired up with. I think also, take a sanity check. Often a lot of the people who you could perceive as the go-getters, as the people who are going to get stuff done and make things happen, just, temper that. Make sure you vet, don't formalize things too much before you meet people in person. Get that opportunity to do a sanity check on your initial perceptions, how that team dynamic might look, because once you spend half an hour at lunch with someone, you may feel quite differently about being in a team with them for a week. So just, once you're in the teams, in general, things are pretty set. So make sure you make that first judgment is a quality judgment and choice that you make, and one that you're going to stick with. So try to figure it out and get a good read on the people who you want to work with.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, sure. You can come make a comment on that. Wow, I get the in-person Andrew experience.
So here's what happened with my team. So I was part of David's class, and then so it was not to diminish any of the people on my team, but I wanted to work on my idea, which was really to build this global community, which is happening now, and we're seeing that happen. But realistically, can't have too many cooks in the same team. You need diversity.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't have all the consultants and nobody to really hit it hard and implement with the different skill sets. So really look for that diversity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like you're saying with that diversity, a lot of the skill sets. Let me phrase it in a different way. Different skill sets work in different ways, right? If you're looking to prototype something physically and to make something small, that takes a lot of time, right? So a lot of the decisions need to be made up front very quickly, probably in the first day or two, which is a lot of pressure. And then so those people, the engineers, tend to respond pretty negatively when on day 4 you're like, actually, we need to just start again from scratch.
Yeah.
So
one more thing with regards to what David was just also saying, research QUT. They have a robotics center. They have all these crazy things. I don't know. Did you go in any of the tours last year?
I walked around the campus a bit.
Yeah, really look at researching what their capabilities are on campus that you can leverage as well, right? For
sure.
Yeah, what's around there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. And one other thing, I just kind of add, you got QT, but you've also got the bootcamp community, who is willing and able to be at your disposal for helping you maybe figure out a few things, or you're struggling with getting some primary market research. That if you have a question about an experience, there is, I would argue to say I put good money on that there's someone in the bootcamp who has had or knows someone who has had that experience, from everything from, from dealing with diabetes during pregnancy, all the way to trying to grow crops in the Arctic, there's, and everything in between. There's someone who we should be able to help you connect with whilst you're trying to figure out who your persona is and the product and all these fun things that you're going to be doing very shortly. But the final thing I kind of wanted to pick up on is in teams, and I think Dan mentioned this, and Chris as well, and Rachel also pointed to it, was that if you go in and you try to like lead straight away with your idea and drive it through, you're gonna really struggle. And I think even if you get appointed for the day, like the CEO of the team or, you know, the team lead or whatever, your ability to lead is based upon trust, not based upon your authority. And building that trust is really tough, because we know that these things take time. So if you're able to meet people and to get to know people prior to the boot camp, you're able to just, you know, maybe start to develop this trust between you and others, both of them in you and you in them. Because the other thing you also find is that a lot of the, what can happen with a lot of leaders is that they don't trust people who are on their team to do things. And they tend to be like very defensive and selective about who they share what with. So I think that would be my last kind of point would be, you know, go out there, like have these conversations, meet people, try to arrive early, post videos. I know making videos can be like a real pain. Just get it done. Nobody really cares about the production quality. Just like talk about yourself from the heart and start to build that trust that'll make all this communication and teamwork so much easier in the week, and then potentially even beyond that as you move on with your ideas. So that's, I think, all of my thoughts. Sorry to take up so much time.
Could I add something to something that David pointed out about team diversity and trying to get a balanced team? One thing that I observed in the team that we formed with Dan was that Dan's presentation was so good that not only was the presentation good, but it's about, you know, it was about energy conservation. And it's a popular subject. So a lot of people wanted to attach themselves to that project. You know, Dan could speak to this, but what I observed was that a lot of people came at Dan. And so that's one of the things that can occur if your presentation is good, your idea is good, be prepared for that. And so you know, that's a challenge. Dan perhaps can speak to that challenge that occurred right in that moment. And so I, being a competitive person and wanted to help my team, I saw the challenge occurring, and I just whispered in Dan's ear, who do you need? Because now he can't work the room. Who do you need? And I'm going to go prospect for the other talent that you need while you have to deal with this line of people coming at you to join your team.
Yeah, that was interesting. We don't have time to talk about it now, but I'm happy to share that with people that want to know about that. Yeah, we had too many people wanting to join my team. We didn't have a good mix, and it's very hard for me to say no to people. So I had to let people leave by attrition. So, and while Richard's trying to go around finding the right people that we needed. So it was good, but.
So kind of like the Hunger Games of joining Dan's team.
Yeah, it was.
You're going to have a good chance to practice your no muscle at the boot camp.
Yeah, you got to learn how to say no. Learn how to say no.
But I probably added to the problem, because once I found a prospect that Dan felt that I need this person or that person, then I put them in line.
As you can see, we can go on for hours. However, we are short on time, and you want to respect your time. You're probably, if it's the start of your day or the end of your day, you're probably can't wait to go to bed or go to work. So we want to thank you for attending this e-seminar on how to, what is the title again?
How to prep.
Yeah, how to prep for how best to prep for your boot camp. And I'm just going to open the floor one last time. Any closing comments from the alums?
I think for me, I just want to reinforce some points that David made about teamwork, is that, you know, a big part of this boot camp is about human behavior. So the boot camp is going to put people in the pressure cooker, and then within your team, you're going to face a lot of interpersonal friction. So you've got a concept of identity and reputation. And in a perfect world, you want the way you see yourself and the way the world sees you to be the same, but often you've got a gap or only a little bit of overlap. I think the best way to approach that is with a concept called radical candor. You know, so besides looking inwards to yourself and seeing how you see yourself and how others see you, is challenge others directly, but also care personally. are those two big concepts. You're going to get that from your mentors. They're going to be challenging you directly. So mimic that amongst your team, but also make sure you care personally. And that comes across in every word you say. Best of luck. And please feel free to reach out to me for anything.
Thank you, Chris. I mirror what you say, and please feel free to reach out with questions anytime. And unfortunately, we don't have time to address the questions that are in the chat box now. I think some of them were looked at. Many perhaps weren't. So we'll be dealing with those in the groups later on, and we'll try and answer each question for the benefit of the community. And very quickly, I just wanted to say that next week we'll be running at on the same day, same time slot, another session about what happens after boot camp, and so that you know where you're headed and what to expect and what you could be looking forward to. And hope to see you on that one.
Yeah, so one last thing, I think we're also gonna, if everybody is okay, we would share your emails, email addresses with the cohort if they want to reach out to you. I know everybody wants to add everybody on LinkedIn, so the million LinkedIn invites expected. So yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you in Brisbane.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Hit it hard, guys.
Bye. Have fun.
Have a good time.